Okay, this is a 2001 Volvo S60. It's got about 110,000 miles on it. Very low mileage for this year model. I'm gonna flush the transmission fluid. First of all, you've got to take this cover off. This was here under the cover in the radiator, and once you get the cover off, you take this radiator line loose. These green tabs, you squeeze it and then pull it out, and some fluid's going to leak out and come out from the radiator and the hose. Not much. I like to use a lubricant. This is like a WD-40 knockoff, but you spray it up in there and try to lubricate the O-rings and any kind of dirt that might be up in there. You want to try to get it out, and because I'm going to reuse these O-rings. When you take that hose out, there's not very much fluid comes out. This is all that there was, maybe about a cup of fluid. It's very dirty, but anyway, that's what you do so far. Of course, I had to put it up on stilts. You got to raise it up to get underneath it. I had this hose here. I've attached it with a zip tie up there to the transmission line. Hopefully it'll hold. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start the engine, and I want the fluid to run out into this container because the first fluid that I'm going to run out, I'm going to measure it. That way I'll know how much to put back in it. Hopefully it won't come gushing out of there. I don't think it will, but we'll find out. Okay, as you can see, my little contraption is working. It's the engine's running, transmission's coming out. I'm listening for the transmission. It looks like it's got air. I don't hear anything, but I don't see fluid coming out, so I'm going to shut the engine off. I saw the air blowing out of the tube. That means it was running out of transmission fluid. We got quite a bit of fluid, probably a gallon or so, maybe 2 or 3 quarts. Okay, I've poured some old fluid and some new fluid into a pan to show you what it looks like. Some of the old fluid is starting to run over into the new fluid. Even still, you can see the new fluid is a very bright red color. It's very translucent, very clear. The old fluid is very dirty and dark. I poured the fluid into this container, an old oil container. I got about 3.5 quarts. So I'm going to save 4 quarts of fluid for the very end. That way I'll know I'll have enough to fill the transmission up on the very last fill. And it's over on the right side. You look down past the radiator hose. It's right down here. They put it in a spot and make it really hard to get to. It's almost like they don't even want you to check the fluid in these things. But I'm going to take that dipstick out and put a funnel down there, and that's where I'm going to pour the fluid into. This is the transmission fluid that I'm going to put in this transmission. I put this stuff, this is the same stuff I put in that car. I've driven it for over 100,000 miles. It runs good. I am not recommending that you use this. You need to do your own research. I really don't care what you put in your transmission, but this is what I'm going to use. I've used it before and it works for me. Mobile ATF 3309. I've put 4 quarts of this Mobile ATF 3309 into the transmission. So what this does is I poured this into the pan. Now when I start the engine up, the transmission pump is going to suck that new fluid out of the pan and push out more old fluid down to the bottom into my container. Okay, this is the first filling and dumping of transmission fluid. Okay, as you can see, it's still running out very dark and dirty. Alright, I see some air bubbles. It's sucking air. I'm going to shut it off. Okay, I have run 8 quarts of fluid through there, and I noticed this was only the second run, and I noticed it was running clearer, a little more clear, so I dipped some fluid out of what was running, and it looks clean. I think I've already got all the old fluid out. I can't believe it with just 8 quarts. Just 2 gallons of fluid, and that did the trick. I'm going to put that line back on, put 3.5 quarts of fluid in there, check the fluid, run it, top it off, and I think it's going to be good. I got it back in there, it's running. I don't see it leaking, not a drop anywhere. So I'm going to get it off these platforms on level surface, check the fluid. I only put 3 quarts in there. I didn't want to make sure I didn't overfill it. I'll get it on the flat surface, check the fluid, and then top it off. Then I'll go take it out for a drive and let you know how it does. Okay, now guys, you can see the difference in fluid here. The paper towel on the left that's where I wiped the dipstick off. Brand new fresh fluid. The one on the right, that's what the old fluid looked like. These automatic transmissions in this car will go for hundreds of thousands of miles as long as you put fresh fluid in them. Volvo doesn't tell you to do that. Neither does any of the other automobile manufacturers. The automobile manufacturers know that transmission will run way over 100,000 miles before it breaks. But if you're someone like me, and you want to put 200 or 300,000 miles on your car, then you want to change the transmission fluid. These Volvos like this are designed to go for at least 300,000 miles. But you have to change the oil, 80 to 100,000 miles, change out the transmission fluid, and then you won't have any problems. I used 12 quarts of fluid total to flush this transmission, 12 quarts, and I still have more than half a quart left over after driving this and topping out the transmission. So I've got enough fluid now still to change the fluid on my 2004 V70, and it's due for another change because it's got about 220,000 miles on it. This one has 110,000 miles on it, and it wasn't showing any signs of problems. It's just that I knew that the transmission fluid needs to be changed, and I don't want the transmission to break. That one out there is showing signs of breakage. So I changed that one and it rejuvenated the transmission. It's got over 200,000 miles on it. I need to put some new fluid in that one so we can try to get about 300,000 out of this one. Okay, this is one last step I'm going to do. If you don't have a tool like this, you don't have to do it. I didn't have a tool like this when I originally did my station wagon, the V70. This is a code reader. If you can reset the transmission, that way it'll relearn all of the shift patterns and everything. That'll help and make it run a lot better. This is it's a knockoff brand. I bought it on Amazon for like 89 bucks. It's an OBD2 plus Vol-Vo, aka Volvo. And this thing does really well. It'll reset your control modules and do things that other code readers won't do. Make sure that you set it up correctly, because if you choose the wrong year model and run this thing on your computer, you can mess your computer up. So be careful. This is an 01. So I'm going to read codes. See, it's going through and it's reading everything. This thing can tell you all kinds of things that regular code readers won't tell you. This will reset your, if you have an airbag error, it'll reset that. Again, your transmission. No, unlocking relay. Yep, see, it's telling me the rear left door, the unlocking relay doesn't work, and I know that already. Okay, now I'm going to reset SRL. Okay. Now when you do this, it should not reset your, it shouldn't erase your emissions code. So if you had any kind of check engine light on or any code like that, that should still be there. But the SRL, that resets your secondary, control module stuff, like your transmission and all of that, I believe. Anyway, this is a great tool to have. If you don't have it, you don't have to, but it really helps. I've done it to this one already. It makes a big difference on the way your transmission runs, because it'll relearn your driving habits and redo the shift patterns, and it makes your car run a lot better. Okay, I've test drove it. It's running good. I mentioned on the oil, on these cases, these were 6 to a box, and I used 2 boxes. Okay, so I ordered 24. There was just enough to do this car and to do that one over there. So it took 12 quarts of oil, of transmission fluid, 12 quarts. And I still have more than a half quart left over when I topped off that last one. So I drained it. I put 4 quarts, drained it again, put 4 more quarts, drained it the second time. The second time when I was draining it, I noticed it was running clear. So I finished draining it. I put the hose back on, put it back together. I put 3 more quarts in, checked the fluid, and topped it off, and now it's running well. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I know some of you are going to ask this, what about the transmission filter on these Volvos? Well, I've researched this, and what I was able to find out is there is no transmission filter, or if there is one, it's not anywhere a user or a mechanic can get to replace it. Now, please tell me if I'm wrong. If you're out there and you see this video and you know that I'm wrong, then please tell us all, where is this transmission filter and how do you replace it? My research showed that from what I could find out, there is not any information about a transmission filter on these cars, which seems really odd that there would not be one, but nevertheless, I couldn't find any information on it. I didn't change a transmission filter on that car. It's been over 100,000 miles. I didn't change one on this one. If I knew where one was or how to change it, I certainly would change it, but that's not the case. So, again, if you know anything about the transmission filters on these Volvos, please let us know, because there's a lot of people all over the Volvo forums and YouTube asking the same question, and nobody has that answer.